We've just assigned a management IP address to this switch so that we can telnet to the switch, so that we can do a secure shell connection to the switch. But think about setting up a PC. You add an IP address to a PC, and that's not enough information. You also need to specify a default gateway for that PC. So if it needs to communicate off of its local subnet, off of its VLAN, it's going to be able to go to a default gateway. And we need to specify that default gateway information for the switch as well. Here's how we do it. We're going to go back into global configuration mode with the configure terminal command, and just from global configuration mode, notice when we added the IP address, we were in interface configuration mode. That was config-if, and the command we gave there applied to this specific interface. If the prompt just says config, then we're in global configuration mode. That's where we want to be to set up the default gateway, and here's the command. We say IP default hyphen gateway, and we specify the IP address of the gateway. And it is 192.168.1.1, and we're done with that configuration, and we can enter the end command. It's that simple. That's how we add a default gateway to our switch for management purposes. At this point, we've connected to our Cisco Catalyst switch via the console. We've assigned a management IP address, specified a default gateway. Now we want to set passwords for the console connection coming into the switch, as well as our VTY, our virtual terminal connections that are going to be coming into the switch when we're connecting via Telnet or Secure Shell. If we want to remind ourselves of the lines we have available, we can do a show line. Remember CTY, that's how we're connected right now. That's the console port. But I've got these 16 virtual terminal lines as well. Let's add a password to those lines, and let's say we want to be prompted for that password when we're connecting via one of those lines. To start off with, let's go into line, not interface, but line con 0 for console 0. And I'm going to say that my password is Cisco. You should probably use a more secure password in the real world. But to keep it easy to remember for you and for me in these video demonstrations, let's just use Cisco. And I then give the keyword of login to say I want to be prompted for that password. Notice my configuration mode right now. I'm in line configuration mode because I'm configuring a specific line. But I've got 16 of those VTY lines, and I can configure them all at once. If I just want to back out one configuration level, I want to go from config line back to config, back to global config, I could say exit. If I wanted to completely exit my configuration, I could say end. That would take me all the way out. I just want to back out one level though, so I'm going to say exit. And that takes me back to global configuration. Now I can say line VTY, and I don't have to do these lines one at a time. I can do them all at once. And the numbering starts at 0. I've got 16 VTY lines. Here's how we configure all of them at once. We say line VTY 0, because the numbering starts at 0, space 15. We're going to be configuring 16 lines when we enter these commands. Just like we did for the console line, let's set the password to Cisco, and let's say login. We're done, so I'm going to give not the exit command, but the end command to back all of the way out. We can see this configuration by looking at the running configuration. That's the configuration that's running in RAM right now. If I do a show run, which is short for show running configuration, and we scroll down toward the bottom, we're going to be able to see our config. Here we go. And don't be surprised if Cisco iOS breaks your 16 lines up into different chunks. This is a pretty common thing to see. This is not a problem for us, but we've got 5 lines here, and we've got 11 lines here. And here's our console line. Let's verify that this works by exiting all the way out of the switch and then coming back in and see if we're prompted for a password. Let's say exit. And it says press return to get started. I press return, and now it's asking for a password. It didn't do that before. We'll type in the password of Cisco, and we're brought back to user mode. And again, if I want to get back into privilege mode, we enter the keyword of enable. We've now configured line passwords for the console line and for our virtual terminal, our VTY lines.